So to make a pumpkin out of clay, you're going to need a nice chunk of clay, and you're going to divide it in two. I recommend about a tennis ball size of clay, but it really depends on how big you want your pumpkin. Once you've divided it into two pieces, make them into balls, spheres, and then push your thumb in and start to pinch. And the main idea is to pinch walls that are even all the way around. So you don't want any huge lumps or bumps. What I'm doing here is trying to make the two sides of the mouth the same size so that when I put them together, they fit. Now the one in my right hand, I'm going to pinch on that a little bit more, widen it a little bit more so that the fit is a little bit more even. Once I've got them roughly the same size, and you'll notice I really haven't spent any time smoothing them, I'm going to score using a metal serrated rib both halves of my future pumpkin. I'm going to take a little bit of slip and just using my finger apply it to one side. I'm not smoothing out my serrated markings. And then compress the two sides together. I'm going to try to just firm that together a little bit so that that air is trapped on the inside. That air will prevent this piece from collapsing if it's fully trapped. Now what I'm doing, it's kind of violent, but it's called stitching. This is called stitching, and it pulls the clay from high to low. It blends the two sides together, and of course, I'm going to spend a lot of time smoothing this later, so right now it really doesn't matter what it looks like. I've stitched all the way around. Now I'm going back with my serrated rib, and I am just pressing against the surface and roughing it up, scoring it up. I am not pulling away clay. I want to keep, you can notice that my angle here is very, very oblique. I am just scoring the surface all the way around on those stitch marks, and then I'm going in over the rest of the piece, pulling from high to low, not taking any clay away from my sphere. Next, I go in with a smooth metal rib, and I just start to smooth some of those score marks. Again, it doesn't have to be super perfect, but this is a really good tool for the job. You could also use your blue rib or a plastic rib, but I feel like having these two metal ribs really makes the job a lot easier. Again, not taking away any clay, just smoothing it in. Then I'll go around and tap on it with the rounded side of the blue rib. So the blue rib has a flat side and it has a rounded side, and I'm using the rounded side so I don't get a bunch of marks as I tap on it. At that point, I could change the shape of it. I could make it from a round shape to a more oval shape. Paddling is good for that. Now I'm firming it onto the table so it doesn't roll around. And then use my thumb here to make an indentation in the top. That's where the stem is going to go. Don't forget that indentation. It really makes a huge difference. Checking for little cracks. If I see a crack, if it's going vertically, I'm going to rub my thumb against it horizontally, and vice versa. So go in the opposite direction of any cracks that you see forming. And again, that air pressure on the inside in this enclosed form means that as I press on this to smooth it, I'm not collapsing my form. Next, I take a wooden smoothing tool, and starting at the center, I kind of slide the tool down. I'm not really drawing with it. I'm kind of sliding that edge down. Now I'm pushing away. I'm going back into that indentation that I marked, and I push away and then I pull towards myself. So I'm kind of widening a channel. That's how I think of it. I'm widening a channel, and that's going to be the beginning of my first section. And I have never counted how many sections a pumpkin has. I don't know if it's random or not, but there I'm going in for another channel, and I just slide the wooden smoothing tool down and then go back up to the top and push away to widen that channel, and then pull towards myself to widen that channel. You could plan out how many sections you want to have. I'm kind of free forming it here. I'm not really planning it. I'm going by what looks good. The danger with this is that you end up with one section that's really wider than the rest, or a couple sections that are really skinny. So I do recommend that you kind of plan it. I didn't here. That's okay though. It's still kind of cute when it's done. Pushing away to widen the channel and pulling towards myself. And unlike, like if you're using a needle tool or if you're using a cleanup tool, you'll probably get some of those little clay bits. And that doesn't happen when you slide your wooden smoothing tool. You're sliding it and there's no little bits getting kicked up, so there's less cleanup. I'm also pushing in not super deep, right? I don't want to pierce into the clay form. I just want to create a channel for sculpting to make this pumpkin look like it has volume. Yeah, if I cut in too deep, I run the risk of deflating this whole thing and also creating channels that don't look like nature, right? Now here's where I feel like, oh, maybe I didn't plan this so well, because that's one side is larger, one section is larger than the other, but it's okay. It's nature, and nature has different little imperfections, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. So check your piece from all sides always. Remember, you're making a three-dimensional object, and you want it to look good from all sides. A little bit of smoothing, checking out all the surfaces. Sometimes when you work on your piece a little bit, it will start to crack, especially if you compress it. So just a little bit of smoothing there with my thumbs. And now I'm getting ready to make the stem. Now the stem is really just a small coil, and you just want it to be kind of proportional to your pumpkin. So this piece that I've made here looks a little bit on the big side, but let's test it out. Let's see how it looks on the pumpkin. Yeah, it looks a little too stocky. So I'm going to remove some clay and re-roll it. You'll notice that I tap it on the counter there to flatten the edge that I'm going to score and slip into place, and then I'm kind of thinning it on the end. Again, just cutting off the tip and making sure that it looks kind of like it was cut from a pumpkin patch, right? You want to think about all of those little details. What are the details that make a pumpkin look like a pumpkin? Definitely the sections. And now on the stem, you want to add some of that texture and those details that make it look like a pumpkin. So I'm just using a tool, any old tool, sliding it along again instead of carving in, to add some striations or some stripes on the surface. And now I'm scoring where I'm going to place this, and scoring both sides. Scoring deeply enough so that you can see it. I just dip it into my slip and compress it into place. Now I want to check out how that looks from all angles and really make sure that the pumpkin's looking good. And as I do that, I realize that I have not compressed the piece of clay firmly enough. So now I'm going back in and taking a tool and just smudging the clay from one piece to another. So blending that clay in a little bit. And I'm doing it where the channels are so that it looks a little more natural. So rather than blending it everywhere, I'm just blending it in those channels. And it kind of gives a little bit of an angularity to that part of the stem, which I like. Little smoothing, checking out the form as I rotate it around, making sure that the pumpkin looks really sweet. And, you know, I could have this in any shape. It could be a tall, thin pumpkin, could be wider and shorter. Pumpkins come in all shapes and sizes and colors. Now, the most important thing, because you have an enclosed form, is you must create a vent hole. And I'm using a needle tool, making sure that it goes all the way in, and now there is a space for the steam to escape, and I'm not going to have any accidents in the kiln. She's cute, isn't she? Love it. Happy fall, y'all.